What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're finally going to be diving into the stats of the EM2 in Warzone specifically, and I thought it would be great to compare this directly with the C58, since this is the most comparable weapon in Warzone currently, and I just wanted to see which one of these is better. And diving right in, let's first have a look at the base stats of this gun, since we haven't done that yet on the channel, but I'm going to go through these fairly quickly since you've likely seen them elsewhere before. With this, we deal a base damage of 4137, upper torso damage is 4540, and what this means is up close it'll take 6 shots to kill to the upper torso, and at a distance it'll take 7 shots to kill. Now, our rate of fire is 535 rounds per minute, meaning our time to kill potential up close is 561 milliseconds, which is actually very good for an assault rifle in Warzone's current state. And then at range, it's 673 milliseconds, which again, that's actually pretty solid for an assault rifle at range with the way that Warzone is currently balanced. It's also worth noting that up close, we only have to hit 1 out of our 6 shots to the upper torso. The rest can hit anywhere else in the body, so it's extremely forgiving when it comes to that. And then at a distance, you can actually hit them anywhere in the body. Even though we deal more damage to the upper torso, it doesn't matter. It's going to be a 7-shot kill with 37 damage or 40 damage. But then getting into headshots, up close our headshot damage is 61, and this means if we mix 2 headshots in with our body shots, we can get a time to kill potential of 449 milliseconds, which is ridiculously fast. After that though, we've got our range value, which is 26 meters, and our bullet velocity is standard for assault rifles at 600 meters per second. But finally, for these base stats, if we look at our base recoil with no attachments, you can see here there is quite a bit of recoil. That's just 20 rounds, and it went all the way from the bottom to the top of that door easily. And while this recoil is pretty much straight vertical, and therefore not that difficult to compensate for, you'll notice the spacing between bullets is fairly high, and if you don't stay on top of controlling it, it will get way up to the sky pretty quickly. So overall with the EM2, it's so far looking like a pretty solid high damage assault rifle, although that recoil is something to be maybe a little concerned about. Now let's hop into the direct comparison with the C58. And starting it off with our damage, the big thing with the C58 is we deal the same damage anywhere in the body. Whereas with the EM2, we do have to hit that 1 upper torso shot up close, which is extremely easy to do. So really, that advantage that the C58 has is pretty negligible. As for headshots, they're both pretty much equal here as far as how many headshots you need mixed in with body shots to help. Up close, with both of these assault rifles, it takes 2 headshots mixed in to help, and at a distance, only 1 headshot needs to be mixed in order to help. Then when it comes to our base shots to kill, the C58 is going to take 1 extra bullet to kill at any range. So up close, takes an extra shot to kill, and at a distance, it takes an extra shot to kill. And this is where I wanted to get into the time to kill section here. Like I said earlier, the EM2 has a slightly slower rate of fire than the C58. They're very, very similar though. And it's also worth noting that their range value is identical at 26 meters. And therefore, what this means for our time to kill potential against 3 armor plates is with the EM2, we're actually killing noticeably faster at both close range as well as long range, since they have a similar rate of fire and the EM2 takes 1 less shot to kill. So far, it's really looking good for the EM2, and it seems like this is definitely going to be the better option if you're just looking at raw killing potential. However, we haven't factored recoil into the equation yet, and time to kill doesn't really matter if you can't hit your shots in the first place. So just looking at this, keeping in mind this is with a stacked setup using the exact same attachments that you'd use to maximize your accuracy and your long-range killing potential. I'll show you guys the class setups that I used here, but I kept things equal here, and I used a 20-round recoil plot. As you can see, the C58 is noticeably more accurate than the EM2. It doesn't climb nearly as fast, and therefore it's actually quite a bit easier to control the C58, especially when you start reaching out to longer ranges. And this is something I've noticed in my experience with the EM2 as well. Even when you stack it with all of the best attachments for recoil, I still have a hard time keeping myself on target and compensating for that recoil consistently once I start stretching out the range a bit. And I gotta say, especially at longer ranges, I do feel more comfortable with the C58 in my hands, even though it's going to take you 1 extra bullet to kill. Now, circling back to the attachments that I was talking about for that recoil test, these would be the ideal attachments for most people if you're using this as your long-range assault rifle setup. With the C58, we're using the Agency Suppressor, Task Force Barrel, 3X Optic, Field Agent Grip, and the 55-round magazine. And then with the EM2, we're using the exact same sort of attachment. So again, Agency Suppressor, Task Force Barrel, 3X Optic, Field Agent Grip, and this time it's the 50-round mag. So there's another advantage to using the C58 over the EM2. You do get an extra 5 rounds in your magazine if you're using the exact same magazine attachment here, which is the recommended one to be using. But overall, it's pretty much the same setup here. And this is where I wanted to get into some final miscellaneous stats, keeping in mind all of the stats I'm going to share here are comparing these stacked setups, so with these attachments that I just went over. And with this, let's start off with our aim down sight time. As you can see here, the EM2 is actually very slow at 517 milliseconds, whereas the C58 is 467 milliseconds. That's still fairly slow, but it's at least faster than the EM2. Then when it comes to sprint out time, it's exactly the same between these two rifles. Our movement speed is also pretty much exactly the same. The EM2 was very, very slightly faster, but by a negligible amount, so I would say essentially the same movement speed. However, our aim down sight movement speed is actually noticeably faster on the EM2 compared to the C58. So that is one advantage that can absolutely make a difference at longer ranges. If you're strafing back and forth as you're shooting at your target at range, especially if you're battling against somebody that doesn't have the greatest bullet velocity on their gun, you will have more of an advantage with the EM2 over the C58. And speaking of bullet velocity, I just wanted to mention that these are both equal when it comes to bullet velocity, both with and without attachments. And with that, that covers it for all of the important stats that I wanted to mention between these two guns. As for my opinion now between them, I think they're both fairly similar in a lot of ways. However, of course, the EM2 has better raw killing power. But like I said, if you're using these at longer ranges, which is what they're really designed to excel at, I just find that I hit shots a lot more consistently with the C58 compared to the EM2, and I actually find myself struggling a little bit at really long ranges with the EM2, where I wouldn't be struggling with the C58 at all. And as a result, it might seem like a bit of a twist here, because normally I will tend to go with the one with a better time to kill, but I actually prefer the C58, and I think it's a better all-around long-range assault rifle. Sure, up close, I'd rather have an EM2 in my hands, but at the same time, there are tons of other guns in the game that I would much rather be using than the EM2 up close, since it's not really designed for that with that really slow handling and unforgiving fire rate. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the EM2 is the greatest gun in Warzone. It's a very usable gun, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's terrible by any means, but for me at least, I'm just not really liking it a whole lot. Now, of course, that is just my opinion. I'd like to hear in the comments section below, what do you guys think about the EM2 so far in Warzone? Are you also finding that that recoil is just a little too difficult to control at longer ranges, even when you stack it full of all of the best recoil attachments? Or do you not really have an issue with this at all? Also, do you like the EM2 more or less than the C58? Just let me know those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.